Let's get some analysis on this now. Simon Jackman, he's CEO at the US Study Centre, joins me. Simon, tell me, what do you make of the decision? I know it was initially flagged by Donald Trump, but this will be a legacy of the Biden administration.
Yeah, those images are going to be ones we associate with the Biden presidency, to be sure, Kieran. I think the really key thing politically, though, is the relatively muted criticism of the strategic decision to withdraw from Afghanistan. I think a lot turns on how these hours literally now unwind. If Americans or allies and partners can't be extracted safely, and indeed the debate in the United States and to some extent in Australia about are we leaving allies, Afghan allies and friends on the ground in the rush to get out. If that goes badly, that's when I think the political heat on this might turn up. The other thing, Kieran, something I'm just beginning to turn my mind to, is where to from here? Does Afghanistan yet again become safe harbour for terrorists and terrorist organisations? And are we in 6 months, a year, 2 years from now talking about another base of operations for organisations that would do us harm, truly unwinding the original mission? And the original success of that, original mission and going into Afghanistan after 9/11.
That would truly be return or back to the future, wouldn't it? I'm speaking to Maurice Payne later in the program. I'll be asking her exactly that question because of the risk there. But the other thing which I think is so pertinent right now is the plight of Afghanistan women. And surely Joe Biden, as a Democrat, many of his colleagues will be very, very concerned about this regression looming for the rights of women.
Yeah, and well said, Kieran. I think that's another thing we'll be, as best we can, given that a lot of media are fleeing the country as well. Stories, and sometimes they're incredibly confronting, about the plight of Afghan women and girls, and indeed the green shoots of an educated civil society that was starting to take root there, essentially in Kabul and some of the other larger towns in the country. The plight of that class, if you will, of women getting an education, starting to see an alternate sort of life course for themselves. If we are treated in weeks and months, and I hope this isn't the case, but to stories of outrage or worse, I think, again, that will be a situation I think the West desperately wants to avoid, and will further speak to sort of the legacy and the political cost of this decision to get out.
There have been comparisons made, Simon, with the fall of Saigon in 1975 and the subsequent impact on American standing internationally. Are they worthwhile, those comparisons? How bad is the hit to US standing right now?
Look, I think this is a little bit different in that for a long time, Kieran, I don't know anybody who has seriously thought that we would see anything other than the outcome. I know you had a grab from President Biden saying it's highly unlikely that the Taliban would overrun the country, but for years it's been the case that the state of Afghanistan, such as it was essentially being held together by the US security and allied security presence, and you take that away, there was nothing else there. Right, and the swiftness with which this Afghani national security forces have folded, there was no real will to fight. It seems there, no will to fight for the state. Right, that was sort of imposed on them, a fiction created by the presence of the West. So to some extent, I think it's a different situation. But you raise a really great question, one that I think Australia and other allies are looking at. Will the US, though, now, if the reason to extract itself from Afghanistan was the strategic focus on this return to great power rivalry, this focus on China and to a lesser extent Russia, a focus on the Indo-Pacific, to what extent now, okay, that's got to be really adhered to credibly now by the US, given, I think, the blow to standing and prestige that can't help but accompany the scenes we're seeing out of Kabul at the moment. I think, if anything, for now, you'd like to think it hardens US resolve that they mean what they say when it comes to the Indo-Pacific being a strategic priority for them going forward.
one of the things it does do, and there's a vacuum in terms of influence. You wouldn't expect anyone to go and try and invade again, like we've seen the fall of the Russians and this time the Taliban defeating the Americans and allied nations. But it does leave a vacuum of influence in Afghanistan. Yeah,
look, and that's the other thing, right? There were friends of ours in the American think tank community saying, hey, Australia and other allies who are, the US is really focusing on the Indo-Pacific, and that's going to come at a diminished focus on the Middle East. Be careful what you wish for, because it's my earlier point, Kieran, if that vacuum is filled by people with the capability and the resolve to do harm to the West, will that center of gravity just start to grab hold of US strategic focus once again and allies, and we'll find ourselves drawn back into the Middle East theater? A lot turns on the answer to that question, Kieran. Yeah. Who supports the Taliban, and what are their longer run ambitions other than the success that they've demonstrated today, and that is retaking those major cities, Kabul among them.
Simon Jackman, thanks for your analysis as always. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Kieran.